Up next, we shall feature Homes Today. This is a proud presentation of Audrey Forshey, who's a well-known RE/MAX realtor as well as an advisor. Today, Ms. Forshey has an interesting guest with her. His good name is Brett Boiselle. Here on this set, Audrey questions Brett on and all about homeowners insurance. Let's join this informative dialogue.
Hello viewers, thank you for joining us on Homes Today. My name is Audrey Forshey and I'm a RE/MAX agent in Rockville, Maryland. And today we have our guest is Brett Boiselle. Hi Brett, thank you for joining us. And Brett is from the Boiselle Insurance Company, and they are independent agents, I believe. And he's going to talk to us today about the basics of homeowners insurance when you're purchasing a property, but also you may want to consider looking at your current policy to make sure that you as homeowners have the proper coverage and you have the proper things and deductibles and things in place. So thank you again for coming and joining us. So Brett, can you just tell us kind of the basics of the homeowners insurance? I know that we need it when the people purchase a property, when you talk to a buyer, a home buyer, and they're going to buy a home. What kinds of questions and what details do you want to know at that point?
Absolutely. So to start with the basics of homeowners insurance, the first thing to understand is that it's a package policy that you're purchasing.
Okay.
And what that means is that it provides coverage for property, and it also provides coverage for liability or legal responsibility in the case that there is bodily injury or property damage caused by the homeowner, who's the policyholder, or their family members who live in the home to another individual.
Okay.
This also includes household pets as well.
Okay.
So dog bite claims, things like that, that's covered under a homeowner's policy. There are 4 essential coverages to really pay attention to on a homeowner's policy. The first is obviously protection to cover the actual structure of your home, right? So every policy has a limit on it that will cover you in the case that your home burns down in a fire, it's damaged in a storm, or some other insured disaster.
Right.
Okay, so that's the first part.
Okay.
The second part is coverage for contents or your personal belongings.
Okay.
So this would be for furniture, your electronics. One way to look at it is anything that is not attached to the actual structure of the home can be considered your personal belongings,
okay.
right? So there's a limit on your policy for that.
Okay.
Another part of the policy is liability protection, right? So in the case that you or your family members in the house are sued, you have coverage for that.
And would that be if something happened to you on the property specifically, not if you go out and do something? Is that correct? It's on the property.
So that's a great question. To answer that, it covers you away from the home as well.
Oh, it does. Okay.
So this is something that a lot of people forget, but it covers you on the premises. So
okay.
say you have a guest over and there's a slip and fall accident, you're covered for that. But if you are out on vacation with your family and something happens where you or a family member cause property damage, let's say in a hotel,
okay.
or something like that, your homeowner's policy responds to that as well.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
The last part of the policy, this is another portion that a lot of people forget about, is something called additional living expenses. Okay. So what this does is, say your house is damaged in a fire,
yes.
and it has to be rebuilt.
Yes.
It's likely in that scenario that your home is uninhabitable,
right.
For a period of time. So this coverage would pay for living expenses while you're living away from home. Say
okay.
you have to live in a hotel for a period of time, it protects you during that time period.
And that's interesting because as an agent, I've actually had companies call me to tell me that people have lost their home in a fire or some tragedy, and they'll ask me if my rental property's up for rent, will consider renting to such folks, and they rent the furniture for them and all the household things in the house so they can live there while their home's being rebuilt. And I guess depending on the size of the house is how long they're in the damage, is how long they're in the property. So that's interesting that that is covered there as well. So in my dealing with buyers in transactions, I want them, my buyers, to call the insurance person early in the real estate transaction before going to closing. Because I think that you guys pull what you call a clue report on the property.
Correct.
And we want to make sure that there's not too many claims on a property that affects the purchase of the property a little bit.
Yes.
Is that right? What does clue stand for?
So what a clue report essentially is a claims history for your property.
Okay.
Right? So insurance companies do look at those closely to essentially determine the insurability of a property.
Okay.
Okay, so to address when the ideal time is for a buyer to contact someone for homeowners insurance, earlier the better.
Okay.
But TRID guidelines now require buyers to apply for homeowners insurance within 7 days of a property going under contract.
Okay.
Okay. So mortgage companies, your lender, will need to see proof of insurance from your agent prior to going to settlement.
Right.
But my advice to buyers would be to get out ahead of it. I know that the home buying transaction can be a stressful time.
Yes.
There's a lot of responsibility that falls on the homeowner to figure out a lot of different things. And homeowners insurance can be one of the last things that people think
Yes.
about. And it doesn't take long for an insurance quote to be produced. Most agents can turn it around within a day. There's things that they may have to do, like doing an exterior inspection of the home, but that's really, it shouldn't hinder the home buyer from being able to get insurance.
Okay.
Going back to the clue report for a minute. Insurance companies pay close attention to frequency of claims.
Yes.
So it's a red flag if you're a home buyer. So let's kind of play through a scenario where you're applying for insurance. So you contact your insurance agent, you give them the address
Yes.
Of the property you're buying. You also give them some details about your previous address, because when they run a clue report, they're not only running it on the property you're purchasing, but they're running it on any previous history that you might have at your previous address, right? So they want to make sure that if the property that they're looking to insure doesn't have issues with the home, like say they had a water damage claim.
Right.
If you have more than, I would say the standard guideline for water damage claims, if you have more than, if you have 2 or more water claims within a 3-year period, that can be a problem. And it can make it a lot more difficult to get a homeowner's policy with a preferred company.
Okay.
You still have options, but you're going to end up paying a much higher premium annually for that policy.
Because of water damage issues
Exactly.
and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And they're looking also at if the current homeowner that owns the property, if they've made a lot of claims, maybe that homeowner just makes a lot of claims, but they want to know if you're the kind of person that maybe makes a lot of claims. Is that why they look at the past history potentially? Or does that doesn't really matter?
Not necessarily. They look for, the reason why they're looking at the prior history is to see kind of what your practice is as a homeowner. Are you
Okay.
a responsible homeowner?
I see.
Are
Okay.
you doing what you need to do as far as home maintenance goes?
I see. Okay.
To avoid claims.
Okay.
Then they run the history on the property you're buying to make sure that if there was a significant claim, that that's been closed, it's been handled, repairs have been done, and that they shouldn't expect to have that same claim
Okay.
occur with the new homeowner.
Okay, all right. And then when the buyer shops for their coverage, and I have two questions. Sometimes when we say the sales price of the property will make up a number is $500,000, and part of the value of the property is the house, the structure, and the land. Do you insure all of it, or do you have to make sure that, I guess if we had to rebuild our house, I'm thinking as a homeowner, it's a price per square foot to make my house the same as what it was, right?
Correct.
So maybe I could be underinsured. Does that happen a lot?
Absolutely. So statistics tell us actually that 64% of homes are underinsured.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot.
That's a strikingly high number.
That's a lot.
Going back to your comment about land, so what you're talking about is the market value of a house.
Okay.
That's completely different from the replacement cost of a home to rebuild it. So
Okay.
when you're talking homeowners insurance, you're talking about the amount of money that it costs to rebuild your home from the ground up. They're not insuring the land.
Oh, okay. All right.
So that's why you see, especially in this area, in neighborhoods in DC, sometimes you'll have cases where the market value is twice the amount of the limit to rebuild the house.
Okay.
Right? So sometimes homeowners get confused about that.
Okay.
As far as homes being underinsured, it definitely happens quite a bit. One of the things that I would advise homeowners to look at is a feature called guaranteed replacement cost on
Okay.
a home. It's something that we at our agency try to offer all of our clients should they qualify. And what guaranteed replacement cost does is it says that the insurance company will promise to pay the full amount to rebuild your home regardless of the limit on your policy. Okay, so the limit that you see, let's say a home is insured for $500,000. So
Okay.
that's the estimate that insurance companies use their own calculations to determine how much it's going to cost to rebuild a home. But
Okay.
at the end of the day, those are estimates, right? There's
Right.
human error. The cost of construction can go up over time.
Right.
And this can leave homeowners vulnerable to large out-of-pocket expenses, right? So guaranteed replacement cost ensures that your home is never underinsured. We've had cases where in our agency a home can be insured for $500,000. The house has a significant fire claim, has to be rebuilt from the ground up, only to determine that the cost to rebuild it is actually $900,000.
Wow,
right?
that's a lot,
So what
yes.
is a homeowner supposed to do when they have this $500,000 limit on their policy and they're
Right.
left with $400,000
Right.
left to pay, right?
Right.
So if you have a standard policy with most companies without this guaranteed replacement cost feature, it's likely that you're going to be left to pay for that, right? So if you're able to qualify and get that, it's a great thing to have. Other coverages that are important to have on your policy that people don't really think about, one thing called sewer and drain backup coverage,
Okay.
also known as water backup coverage.
Okay.
It's one of the most common claims
Is
for
it really?
homeowners. Yes, especially in Maryland, you see it all the time. A lot of new homes now have sump pumps
Yes.
connected to the house.
Right.
They're designed to carry water away from the home.
Right.
But things happen, storms happen where the power goes out.
Yep.
Right? And all of a sudden that sump pump
Isn't
is
working.
not working, right?
Right.
It's not carrying water away from the home.
Right.
So that creates a big problem.
Okay.
This endorsement that you put on the policy can add additional coverage to make sure that if a sump pump fails or if water backs up through a sewer or drain, there's coverage on the homeowner's policy.
And so those would be in additional, like the guaranteed. You call that guaranteed?
Guaranteed replacement
Okay,
cost.
so that, and then the water backup. Those would be, I guess, I would call that a rider. Is that what that's called, or what do we call that? What do you call
In
it?
the insurance world, we call them endorsements.
Okay, all right.
We call them endorsements, but when you discuss it with your agent, when you bring up these different coverages, and when you have a conversation with your agent, they should be the ones to advise you.
Okay.
Right? We don't expect homeowners to understand everything about insurance.
Right.
It really falls on the responsibility of the agent, in my opinion, to consult the homeowner and say, this is your situation, this is what you need to have, so you don't have to worry about it, right?
Yes.
There was one other kind of coverage that I wanted to address really quickly, and that is jewelry coverage.
Okay.
So most policies will have a fairly low per item limit,
right?
Sometimes $1,000, and jewelry, like engagement rings, can often exceed those limits. So those need to have an appraisal. They need to be scheduled onto the policy.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Brett. Very helpful information, and we'll see you again.
Thanks so much, Audrey. Thanks for having me.